For some background information on Somalia, it ranks the third poorest country in the world based off of its GDP. Its GDP per capita income in 2020 was $309, declining over 3% from 2019. For some geography information, it's located on the Horn of Africa, just south of the equator, so it's very warm year-round. Its agriculture is heavily reliant on several different products, and flooding and droughts are very common. For Somalia's imports, it is mainly rolled tobacco, vegetables, raw sugar, and rice. Most of the imports are from the UAE and China. For the exports, it is mostly sheep and goats, animals, oily seeds, gold, which is the largest, and most of the exports go to the UAE and Saudi Arabia. When you search Somalia, you may also see Somaliland. Somalia is a country that is recognized by foreign nations. However, Somaliland is a separate region within Somalia that declared independence from the main country in 1991, yet it is more stable than Somalia currently and has less brutal attacks. Both of the countries have separate currencies and separate police and armed forces. There are many key problems Somalia faces, especially with its economy. First of all, political tensions and civilian unrest are at a high right now. A terrorist group called Al-Shabaab is taking over, recruiting children and harming innocent civilians. In 2021, human rights tensions heightened as freedom of expression was eradicated and journalists were being brutally murdered for exposing the truths. A pause on presidential elections has happened in recent years. There has been no guidance, a lack of central government, and judicial hearings. There has also been a rise in crime rates. Continuing with that, many individuals do not want to start businesses or continue their businesses due to a lack of government protection and unrest. Many civilians also became dependent on foreign aid from countries such as the U.S. The U.S. did provide close to $199 million in additional humanitarian assistance for Somali citizens that dealt with food insecurity, ongoing violence, and recovery from floods and droughts. The COVID-19 pandemic, like in many other countries, did not help the economy. There was little testing and vaccine rates. 15,294 people were diagnosed and 798 died during 2021, and rates are much higher with unreported cases. There was also famine during this time, and many people were not purchasing anything because they didn't have money, so they weren't supporting the government or their neighbors, and they were not deciding to open businesses. The basic economy maintains presence through livestock, telecommunications, and money transfer companies. As well, livestock accounts for nearly 40% of their total GDP and around 50% of total exports. Opportunities to grow in education, urbanization, technology, and healthcare could create jobs and build further to the economy. Plans with energy resources and reserves of oil and gas are in the works as well to help further the economy. To reiterate these issues, extreme flooding and droughts wiped out agriculture, leaving farmers out of work and people out of food. Infestation of locusts also threatened many farmlands. A quote from FAO said, "A single locust plague can lead to a loss of 170,000 tons of grain, enough to feed 1 million people for a year," which is a lot. Famine occurred during this time and much civil unrest. Currently, Somalia is getting a lot of assistance. As of 2020, they were able to join the Heavily In-Depth Poor Countries HIPC initiative that would help them to reduce their debts, which were nearly 55% of their GDP. U.S. aid from the American People Map shows that Somalia was supported in getting 21,000 children's secondary education, which helped them immensely and will also help them and teach them how to help their neighbors as well as make their own businesses and contribute to the economy. Assistance from the U.S. of $199 million for humanitarian assistance with famine recovery, drought, and flood recovery also took place recently. There are many different ways that you could alleviate poverty in a country such as Somalia. For Somalia, I think that in-kind transfers would be one of the best ways to educate and influence the public. I think that by highlighting Somalia's current economic standing, as well as their civil unrest, violence, and famine, as well as COVID-19 effects, it can help to educate those in developed countries and offer them a source to give. I also think that a creation of minimum wage laws would be beneficial to the country as a whole and the economy once the government is back on its feet again. I think that by creating minimum wage laws, we will have more people that are participating in the workforce, less people that are unemployed, and more people that are contributing to buying efforts in the economy overall. They will be helping their neighbors as well as their neighbors will be helping them. Also, I think that Somalia should take advantage of their opportunity to be an exporter in a larger world power. Although they are small and they are under many other countries in terms of GDP, I think that by their recent discovery of natural gas reserves as well as oil reserves, they have the opportunity to make more money and repair themselves of their debts. Somalia currently does not have any sort of social welfare programs, and I think that they could somehow create a welfare program that is much smaller than the US and much less drastic that could set aside a portion of foreign aid to give to each of its citizens. It could be in the form of a card or some sort of way where we know that they are spending it specifically on necessities, similar to a food stamp card. We're giving them the money already, so I think that could definitely be beneficial. As well, I think that we could increase the number of volunteers because there are so many volunteer opportunities for teaching and healthcare. And with that, we would be able to teach and educate